put into our OneNote. So remember, you can download that as an app on your phone so that you can see it whenever you like. Okay, we are going to look at the diamond data set, which is on NZ Grapher. Remember, the first thing that you're going to do with any data set is you're going to have a read about the information. So this is every diamond is unique, blah, blah, blah. This data is on 236 round diamond stones that were collected from a Singapore-based retailer of diamond jewellery, okay, who had the stones valued. So our population, we could say, is diamond stones from the Singapore-based retailer. It's not the 246, okay? We just say our population is the diamond stones from a Singapore-based retailer. And we might want to write that down so that we remember when we want to deal with it later. So there will be a lot of you guys just listening today and me writing. Okay, sorry. What did I say? Diamond stones. Fix it up later. Yeah, got it. Whatever, go away. All right, where was I? Right, then we have a look at the variables. So we've got the carat, which is the weight of a diamond. Would that be numerical or categorical? Numerical. The colour. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Numerical or categorical? Yeah, it's an interesting one, eh? Because it is a number. It's a discrete number. It's a count. But you could also put it as a categorical. Would we investigate colour if we're a little bit unsure about what variable it is? Probably not. Okay, the clarity, which is average or above average, numerical or categorical? Categorical. The lab where it was tested, we can see there's just two labs there, 1 and 2, so categorical, and then we've got the price in US dollars, so the value it was given, numerical. A reminder, we're going to pick one categorical piece of data and one numerical piece of data. I thought what we might do is have a look at clarity and price. So again, when we're doing our brainstorming, we've got clarity, average and above average, and I can't spell, average. Okay, and then we have price. Which one do we think is going to cost more? It's going to have the higher price, the average or the above average? The above average. Okay, so we think above average equals more. So that bit of information there would not stay in your report. Okay, that is just your brainstorming, so that you've got all the bits that you are then going to put into your question. Remember, for your question, sorry, I'll make that bigger so people can see it. I say to you, start with the population. Your inference book puts the population at the end. I say put the population at the start, because then it's done. Okay, because you have to have the population. So I would say for all, because it's all of them, diamond stones from a Singapore-based retailer is the price, and I'm going to put what next to that? US dollars, because that's what it was. Now what have I done wrong? I have made a mistake already. No median. Is the median price of above average. Do we want to call them stones or diamonds? Yeah. Above average diamonds. More than median price of average. And that's my question. Boom, done. Okay. You don't have to do this for Achieve, but what I would probably do is just above that, I would write a note for myself to come back and write an introduction. Okay, where you discuss a little bit about the diamonds, discuss why we might be interested in looking at this, what we expect, and we might put a hypothesis. Okay, what are we expecting? Those things are not have-tos for Achieved. I would expect you to put in an introduction just because it makes it a bit tidier, but if you don't have an introduction, it does not mean that you are going to fail. All right, this part is quite important, getting the graph. Okay, if you watch the video for anything, it's for this part here. Your data set will be on Google Classroom when we do this. So you'd have to copy and paste the data over. All you do is select all the data, go to data, go either import from clipboard or paste the table, either or. The diamonds data is already in NZGrapher, so we're just using that. First thing I am going to do is take my sample. Okay, because remember, we are pretending that this is the population. There are two different ways that we could sample that. We could do a simple random sample. There's 236 bits of data. We could just go straight to 100. Okay, and you would put in your assessment, I'm going to take a simple random sample of 200 from the population. Okay, or we are looking at our clarity, aren't we? And we can see that there's 126 of one and 100 of the other. We could say I'm going to take a simple random sample of 100 from each group. If one of those groups was significantly larger than the other group, our sample size might be proportionate to the size of the group, and that would be stratified sampling. Okay, when we're kind of looking at the size. I am going to do a simple random sample of 200. Okay, and then I have my sample there. You have to write that down. Okay, so a have to thing is saying your sampling method, and it can be as simple as saying I will use NZGrapher to take a simple random sample of 200. If you are aiming for a higher grade, you can describe in more detail why you have chosen that sampling method. What is the benefit of that sampling size? What are some pros and cons of that sampling method? Basically justifying it. Okay. If you talk more about your sampling method and justifying your sample method or your sample size, that is what we call statistical insight, which is what we're looking at for higher grades. But for Achieved, just saying I'm going to take a simple random sample of 200 is enough. Just saying a simple random sample, not enough. Just saying a sample of 200, not enough. You have to say the sampling method and the sampling size. Okay, now next bit, completely optional, but possibly a good idea, is to go data and then go select and copy the data table. Open a Google, what are these ones called? Sheet. And copy it over there. Okay. Every time you take a random sample of 200, it will be different. So if you want to go back and look at your sample data, it's gone once you close NZGrapher. But if you put it into a Google Sheet, this here, you can see there's 200 bits of data. 200 bits of data. That is our sample. That is the sample that you took. And so you can reference back to it if you want. You can also include it in your assessment if you want. Okay, but you don't have to. It's just good practice. You are going to make a box and whisker graph. I'm going to try and make once my laptop decides to do what I want it to do. Why is it not working? Who knows anything about technology? What, like, did I accidentally push a button that I shouldn't have pushed? Yeah, it's like I can't right click. No, that is the Screencastify thing. Okay, that right clicked. Let's see. Woo! Okay, we're going to make a dot plot. This video is going to be great, right? Our numerical variable we said was price. Remember that was in our question, the price, and we were comparing by clarity. So there we have our dot plot. We are going to need our summaries, so we tick the summaries box. It is that annoying piece of annoyance. Move it up there. So we need our summaries. I like high box plots. That's my personal preference. I feel like a low one puts it over the dots, makes it more difficult for me to see. Okay, so I prefer high box plots. Remember, I don't like shape outline. You can put it on there if you want, but you don't have to. One thing you have to do, please don't forget to do it, is your informal confidence interval. We'll put the blue bar on, and your confidence interval limits. Name your graph. This is just diamond prices. Doesn't have to be fancy. And then update the graph. Now, do you see how that graph is kind of squishied up? Okay, those dots are going into the box plot a little bit. What you can do is move this bar again. What you can do is you can hide the bottom section and it stretches it out a bit. Okay, so you can adjust some settings to play with it. The other thing I do quite often when I first make a graph, so remember the data is going to disappear once I shut NZ Grapher at that sample. What you can do is start looking at these outliers and making notes about them. Okay, so we've got this one here is above average. It's got a color of 3 and a carat of 1. We've got that one there. We've got that one there. Okay, so we can actually do some extra investigation about those bits of data if you are wanting to talk about them. Right click, copy image, paste into you'll use a Word document. You won't do it on OneNote. I'm just putting it here so that you guys have it. All right, then, very, very basic analysis. Which one has a higher median? Average or above average? Average, okay? So in my sample, I can see that average diamonds have a higher median price, and then I can put what the actual median is, which is $3,209.50 compared to above average diamonds. Context is important. What you're talking about is important. So they have a higher median. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the average diamonds compared to the above average. And I have put my evidence. What is it? 2191. I don't have to write US dollars every single time because I did write it in my question. So it is in my introduction. That is sufficient. You actually don't have to write anything more than that. I do expect every single one of you to write more than that, though. Okay, and that's a little bit about what that means. So this suggests, okay, if you say this suggests, that means you don't have to say this means in my sample. Okay, so this suggests the average price of average diamonds. I'm going to be saying average a lot, aren't I? And it is a bit repetitive, and that's fine. Okay, so this suggests the average price of average diamonds is higher than above average diamonds. Done. Analysis part 1. Okay, what's the second thing I've asked you guys to write about? Spread. Spread. Confidence intervals comes into our conclusion. So which one is wider? Above average or average? average, okay? So I can see that average diamonds, middle 50%, is more spread out than above average, middle 50%. What's our evidence for that? IQR. Somebody got a calculator handy? Thank you, Caden. Right, Caden, 5526.5. Take away 1100.4. Sorry, 44. Okay. Okay, and the IQR for above average is 3320.1. Take away 870.1. Did you get it? So it was 3320.1, take away 870.1. Okay, and so there is our context. We're talking about the middle 50% of the diamonds. We haven't really talked about price, but we can bring that into our this means. So this means in our sample, okay, because it's in our sample, it is not about the population yet. The middle 50% of prices for average is what? What does that spread show us? Okay, the less spread out, the more consistent. Okay, so the one that's got the bigger spread, it is more varied. So the prices are more varied. This means in our sample, the move is more varied. Okay, and we can just leave it like that. That there, those two, that's it. Achieved level analysis, done. Didn't take us long, did it? Now we can jump in and start writing our conclusion. Okay. First thing we do is we talk about the confidence intervals. If you want to put titles as well, you can, but you don't have to. Okay, so when we start talking about our confidence intervals for our conclusion, we say, I expect the population median for average diamonds to be, and we say what it's between. 2513. What was the point? 0.5. Why do I put a 0 on the end of that even though there wasn't a 0 up above? Because it's money. 3905.50. Okay, if you leave it like that, I'm going to view that as lack of understanding. Okay, we're talking about money, so write it properly. Could put price in there too. Ugh. Right, what are we between? 1839 and 2543. What surprises you about this graph, by the way? Which one do we expect to be higher, price-wise? The above average, didn't we? Okay, and this graph is making it look like the average might be more expensive. If you want, you are allowed to change your question, okay, to match your graph. Well, you could change your question to say, for all diamond stones from Singapore, is the median price of above average diamonds less than? You can do that. Don't have to. Okay. For my conclusion, I am going to copy this because that is the easiest way to guarantee that you have all of the things ticked off for your conclusion. And then I'm going to come down here and I'm going to paste it, but I'm going to edit it a little bit. Do those confidence intervals overlap? So this one starts at 2513. This one finishes at 2543. So is there overlap? Yeah, it's small, but there is overlap. Okay, so we would say because the confidence intervals overlap, I do not have enough evidence to conclude that, change it to no longer a capital, because the confidence intervals overlap, I do not have enough evidence to conclude that for all diamond stones from a Singapore-based retailer, I'm going to take that is away because it no longer makes sense. I do not have enough evidence to conclude that the median price of above average diamonds, and I'm going to move that is to there and get rid of the question mark. And then you're going to read it out loud and make sure it makes sense, just in case you frogged up. Okay, so because confidence intervals overlap, I do not have enough evidence to conclude that for all diamond stones from a Singapore-based retailer, the median price of above average diamonds is more than the median price of average diamonds. We are nearly finished, and we still have half a lesson to go. Okay, so there is no excuses to fail this assessment. Okay, you will have 4 complete periods to do it, which is why every single one of you should be aiming for merit or higher. Because how easy was this achieved-based one? Pretty darn easy, eh? Okay. Last thing that we absolutely have to talk about is variability. Okay, this is one of the have-tos at year 12. If I take another sample, am I going to get the exact same information? No. Okay. Do I expect it to look similar? Yeah. Why do I expect it to look similar? Yeah, because it's a random non-biased sample. Okay. So we discuss that to some degree. I tend not to write a I probably will. Just don't copy and paste, okay? There are only so many ways that we can talk about variability. Make sure it's in context. So if I took another sample, I would expect to get similar yet slightly different results. I would still, how do we want to say this? How do I want to say it without having you guys parrot too much? Okay, if I took another sample, I would expect to get slightly similar results, as long as I used another simple, random, and unbiased sample. Did I spell biased wrong? Yes. Because there is only a small overlap, so we can't parrot that because it might be different in your one, overlap in the confidence intervals. I would still expect to see the median for above average to be lower than the median for average. And you can put I wonders. I wonder if a larger sample would result in, this is probably a bit much for achieved. It's just because I didn't really think about it before I planned the lesson. I wonder if a larger sample would result in a smaller confidence interval. Okay, because remember, larger samples give you a more accurate data set. Smaller confidence interval that do not overlap. Basically, anything that talks about if we took another sample, it's going to be different. I'm going to have different medians, but they're probably going to be similar to what I had. Okay, I'm still going to expect that median to be around that range. And linking back to the conclusion. So if there is a significant gap in your confidence intervals, what we would say is, because there is such a significant gap in the confidence intervals, I would still expect to reach the same conclusion. If there was a significant overlap in the confidence intervals, you would still expect to reach the same conclusion. Because in this particular data, we only had a minimal amount of overlap, it's hard to say whether we would expect the same conclusion. Okay, we can't know for sure because it's such a minimal overlap. So we could do multiple samples. Some of them might overlap, some of them might not overlap. Okay, how would we mitigate that? Take a bigger sample. We can't really with this data set, considering they only gave us X amount. But then that's it. Done. That's a whole assessment. Finished. Not too bad, eh? Is it raining? Oops. And